All right, then good evening and welcome back to your view with me, coming to you live from Linden here in Johannesburg, and our newsmaker tonight. No prizes for guessing. John Steenhuisen, newly elected interim leader of the DA and also DA's parliamentary leader and chief whip of the DA for many years. And just simply a fantastic politician out in Parliament. John, congratulations.
Thank you very much, JJ, and thanks for the opportunity to be with you. It's obviously been a big, daunting day.
Absolutely.
It's great to end it with you.
No, thank you so much for making your time. I think that it's hopefully it's the beginning of a good relationship when we call you to come through. You've always been accessible, and we need to say that of politicians because we have lots of other bad things to say about all of you. Man, you know, I think there's a big elephant in the room. I'm not to just deal with it straight away. It seems to me the issue of race, no matter how you look at it, it is a big elephant in the room in the DA. And I'm wondering how, in your availability to lead the DA, you have decided how you're going to slice it up. Because if you listen to Patricia de Lille, and I have no reason to disbelieve Patricia de Lille, after years of her telling me to vote for the DA for many years, rallying and running around, I have no reason to disbelieve Mashaba or my money for that matter, when they put a big question mark about how the DA deals with race. So I want you to tackle that for me in this way. In your view, you've been in the DA for a long time. Was there a discussion, informally or otherwise, right, ahead of Musi's election roughly 4 years ago, right, that it would be a good idea for a party that wants to govern the whole of South Africa to, in fact, have black leadership, right, either singularly as a leader ahead as my money, or broadly in your federal executive, in your structures? Was there a discussion like that that you thought was actually sensible from a political strategy point of view?
Well, of course, it was always the criticism of the DA from both donors, from supporters, who said that if the party wanted to grow, it needed to get a black leader in place to be able to be more appealing to the black masses in South Africa. The majority of citizens in this country are black South Africans. And I want to hit this point right up front because you spoke about the elephant. There's some who are casting around saying that I've said that race doesn't matter. Of course race matters in South Africa. And it matters because we still have far too many people locked out of opportunity and poverty, and almost all of them are black South Africans. But yes, there was that discussion, and there was a view that if we had to get a black leader in place, that we would suddenly open up a huge new market of black voters. This last election has shown us that that's not the case, and we actually went back in all communities, including amongst black South Africans. The most times that we've advanced our vote with black South Africans is when we've been clear and unequivocal about what we're standing for, and we've stood up strongly for those things. And so the review panel process that embarked upon looked specifically at the issue of race and within the DA and said that the DA had to recommit itself to its principles of non-racialism.
Are you saying unequivocally that the last election result was squarely a reflection that having a black leader doesn't necessarily mean that you'll have more black supporters? Because there may have been other factors. Because you could have a black leader, but if you don't complement that with things that resonate with black people, right? Clarity on redress policies, BEE, employment equity, affirmative action, things that black people worry about whenever there's a suggestion that a DA-type party may lead to say, yo, we may be disadvantaged, we may be left out, we may have no redress. Right? Are you saying that? Are you saying to me that maybe there wasn't a combination of factors, and that maybe you acted too hastily to say, therefore the leader must go?
First of all, let me just say that that we never said the leader must go. That was never the decision.
Your review report says he must go.
The review report said that we must go to an early Congress. It didn't say that the leader couldn't stand again and try and seek a mandate, but it felt that after the election result, it would be important that it is a fresh mandate sought.
Which was a vote of no confidence somehow.
Well, I wouldn't say it was a vote of no confidence. And certainly, I was in the federal executive where we urged Mr. Maimane to stay on as the leader and fight on to Congress. And it was his own personal choice around that. But I think that, you know, there was always this view that if we were to get a black leader, we would grow in. But I agree with you. There were a number of factors. And I'm sure we're going to talk about some of them this evening, about what I call the big blue wobbly jelly that the DA was in this last election. And that can't put squarely on the shoulders of Mr. Maimane. But unfortunately, with politics, the buck always stops at the leader's door. And that's not only in South Africa, it's the world over, which is why you see when parties don't do well, leaders step down and they give their parties the space to grow. But that wasn't the case in this instance. We wanted Mr. Maimane to stay on, certainly to the Congress. I was hoping that he would contest that particular election going forward. It was his personal choice. Parties got to pick up and carry on from that situation. I think that's what we're trying to do now.
My wife couldn't do the jelly today because she thought of it a bit too late, because it has to set. You know, you don't wake up and it's a jelly. So surely, as someone who's been involved in politics for a while, this jelly, this wobbly jelly, for me, has been a bit of a mixed message around BEE. And now today I'm hoping that you can tell me what the clarity of thought is. Let's talk about BEE, right? Forget about the fact that the ANC is incompetent, will not be able to implement BEE. Let's talk about the idea of BEE. And we'll look at it through a lens of 5 questions. In BEE, we want, first of all, that the ownership of South African companies, right, must reflect South Africa. So companies that are 100% white can't think that they can just carry on because it doesn't matter. Companies that are run completely by white people are in a wrong place, are in a wrong country, in a country that's 90% black, 90% black voters. Right? Companies that don't invest in communities are in a wrong place. Companies that don't invest in skilling their people. Companies that don't invest in skilling small business. So those are the 5 things that will sum up BEE. Surely you can't oppose any of this stuff from a policy level.
Well, of course, but you've got to look at it from a different perspective, and that is redress. BEE is the ANC's version of redress. So you can consider it like a brand. So you have soft drinks. The ANC's version is Coke. We're saying that Coke is not working. It's not lifting people out of poverty, and that brand of redress needs to be reassessed. And what we want to do is to build a new brand of redress. We all accept South Africa remains deeply divided. It is an unequal society, both economically and spatially, and that far too many people are locked out of opportunity, and the majority of those people, 99.9%, happen to be black South Africans. So you have to have redress policies. Most governments in the rest of the world have a luxury where they can focus on opportunity policies, healthcare, education, etc. We have to, given the history of dispossession, and there was legislative dispossession of ownership and the means of production in South Africa, there has to be redress. But the ANC's version of race-based redress is not working.
Let's park that. I want to challenge that a little bit, John, right? BEE, you are a Democrat, all right? BEE is a law of this country. Forget about the ANC may have wanted or didn't want. All I'm saying to you, and I agree with you, is that the ANC has failed to oversee it, implement it, make sure that, in fact, it's properly implemented. If you look at the latest employment equity report, which is a big element of BEE, it's pathetic that after 25 years, you still have 70% of all new appointments, all new promotions being to white people in a country that actually understands redress. So I'm saying, if I was a corporation, a white corporation, that did not care about change, and the DA were suddenly a national government, would I have to worry about the fact that my company is 100% white owned? It procures from white suppliers only. It hires only white top managers, only hires blacks at unimportant positions below. Will I have to worry about? And I want you to be practical with me, because the corporate South Africa who funds you, who also funds the ANC, right? And sometimes they don't know who to fund, but it doesn't matter, it's for another day, right? Want to know, and so far they have sort of relaxed a little bit because they realize that, oh, these guys can't monitor. They've got an AA policy, EE policy, nobody can monitor it, we can just carry on our merry way. Will they have to worry about not changing how they look? And I'm talking about complexion here, I'm talking about inclusion of people who have been excluded. Will they have to worry about that? Or should you become president of the country, they won't have to worry about transformation?
Everybody should have to worry about what we call diversity, because any institution or corporation in South Africa has to represent the diversity of South Africa. Of course, that's important. But let's just be completely honest. BEE and affirmative action was an unholy compact between the ANC and big business. And it was their way of ensuring that they could, keep the buddy-buddy relationship going without too much trouble. But I don't think anyone who genuinely cares about South Africa and advancing its economy and any company in South Africa can be deaf and blind to the issue of transformation in South Africa and how we can lift people out of poverty and get them into opportunity. So I think that you can operate in the way that BEE and affirmative action has. What has been caught in
how would you do it? Let's be practical. How would you do it?
You focus then at policies and redress that target people specifically who have been excluded. The problem with BEE is that it continues to keep the same group of people empowered, very wealthy, including in the net as well. People like the Guptas who benefited from BEE deals, while leaving
no, those are straightforward corruption, man. That's not BEE.
They were able to take part of it because that brand of redress has failed. As we sit here today, you say 25 years after democracy, many people are still to taste freedom. There's no economic freedom for them. And those policies that target people on the basis of race have not worked. And that's why we say you don't need the proxy when you know where the disadvantage is. Go straight to the point of disadvantage. Let's focus on lifting poor people out of poverty.
Why does it sound uncomfortable for the DA to simply be able to say, right, any redress policy must address the fact that black people are the majority who are poor in this country?
It doesn't.
What is this proxy thing? Are you telling me there are so many white, starving and poverty-stricken people that you need to worry about?
Well, that's the point. We don't need the proxy. That's the point I'm trying to make. If you look at Stats SA, if you look at the definition of poverty, there are only 30,000 white South Africans who would even qualify for policies that focused on that. So what is the problem then with focusing it where it's needed most, as using disadvantage and poverty as the measure for where those policies... And that way, you don't keep re-empowering people who've been lifted out of poverty already. Surely you want to focus policies on those people who remain locked out of opportunity, remain in poverty, or living in hopelessness and despair. That's where the rubber's got to hit the road with redress. Then you can also focus on the opportunity side of it, because there's no substitute for any redress policy. There's no substitute for quality healthcare, quality education, a growing economy that's lifting people out of poverty and creating jobs. Those are the things that, and a capable state that's able to deliver services. So
what do you mean targeted redress? Can you please explain?
Target at the people who need it most.
What redress is not targeted? Because redress by its definition.
BEE is not targeted at all. And
how is it not targeted?
Well, it is targeted. It's targeted at a very small elite. So rather focus your policies on expanding opportunity for the people who need it. Let's look at the social grant system, for instance. That doesn't have a racial threshold to it. It doesn't say if you're white, you don't have it. If you're coloured or Indian, you get paid less. It looks at a means test. And anyone in the country who meets that means test qualifies. 99.9% of SASSA grant recipients are black South Africans. There's very few white, Indian, coloured recipients of the social grant system, because you're redressing the imbalance of the past by using the disadvantage as the redress mechanism.
Do you agree with me, though, that your messages get muddled up in all of this sophistry of explaining redress and so on? Is it something you are thinking of as a leader, to try and simplify your message?
Of course,
right?
Jojo.
And when we come back from a break, I want you to simplify it for me.
Okay,
and I'm focusing on business, because I don't believe that it's targeting a few people. Because a lot of people are small business, medium business, who are squeezed out, who in fact are victims of corruption and chronic capitalism and all of this. But I want us to be focused and say, right, there's lots of businesses here, if you look at the Johannesburg Stock Exchange, that are owned by whites or foreigners. And blacks are excluded in a majority. I think the numbers being bandied about 3% or 22%, doesn't matter. I want you to come specifically to that and say, how will your policies be different if you are a government tomorrow? We're talking to John Steenhuisen. He's a new leader, interim leader of the Democratic Alliance, energetic politician, a head of parliamentary leader of the DA. And he's going to talk to me about how he's going to take the DA forward. Stay tuned for more conversation after the break.